latest episodes of Legend of Vox Machina Season 2 have dropped, and good God, this show just keeps getting better. Today on FraudOnTheTele, we're going to be discussing Legend of Vox Machina episodes 4 to 6, and I'm going to be giving you guys all my thoughts and reactions, what I liked, what I didn't like, what the show changed from the original Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and just everything in general about the amazingness of these Vax Raven Queen scenes, as well as the amazingness that was Episode 5, Pass Through Fire. As always, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out some of our other Legend of Vox Machina content. And let's just crack on with the madness, shall we? So last time in Legend of Vox Machina, we were left off at one of my absolute favorite scenes of all time from Critical Role Campaign 1, the death and resurrection of Vex, which I have to say was done quite beautifully. Legend of Vox Machina does this really cool thing. In many ways, it enhances the story of Campaign 1. Vax, in a desperate attempt to revive his sisters, calls out to the matron of ravens, the goddess of death, asking her to take him in place of his sister, which the goddess happily obliges. Throughout these episodes, we see Vax go through a number of visions and dreams, each giving the audience, as well as the character itself, important information. In the battle with the Beholder, which, fun fact, was not actually released by Zara in the campaign, but I will say the justification and character motivation of this whole change here, and just everything that the animated series does with Zara, makes a lot of sense to me. Personally, I actually enjoyed a lot of these tweaks they made to Zara for the purpose of the animated narrative. During this fight with the Beholder, Vax becomes incapacitated, trapped within a vision given to him by the goddess of death. In this vision, we see Vax locked in combat with a strange masked warrior. This is Pervon Sul, the great champion of the Raven Queen during the Calamity in an ancient war between the Betrayer gods and the Prime deities, which ultimately left 2/3 of the population of Exandria dead. In these scenes, we see Vax fighting for his life as this ancient warrior mercilessly beats him over and over again. It seems this fight is unwinnable for Vax, yet he continues to push on until he hears the voice of his sister Vex in his head, saying, "Whatever happens, it's out of our control." A callback to a flashback we saw earlier on of the story of Vex and Vax, and how Vex came into the possession of Trinket her bear. Side note, I really love how Legend of Vox Machina weaves all of these flashbacks and memories of our characters' backstories into the narrative, and how it links these moments with whatever struggle internally the character is currently going on through in the story. I think this was done amazingly well for Vex and Vax over the first 4 episodes, as we see glimpses into the twins' past, and we better come to understand the mind of Vax and his fear of losing his sister and of just death in general. It's then that Vax realizes that only through the acceptance of death and his fate will he pass the Raven Queen's challenge. Pervon slashes his sword through Vax, Vax passing the test as Pervon kneels, declaring him the new champion of the Raven Queen. Awesome, awesome, awesome scene here, man. The way Legend of Vox Machina does these dream sequences and visions are just absolutely awesome, and it serves as a really cool way to advance the plot and give character information while still being broadly true to the events that take place in Campaign 1. With Vax free from this vision, his Deathwalker's Ward armor begins to glow as we watch our boy go to town, soloing a Beholder. Now, I gotta say, they really did juice up the vestiges here for the show. In broad strokes, Legend of Vox Machina does this cool thing where much of the world that they build still abides by Dungeons & Dragons rules, even if it is a bit loose. Here, though, we have kind of our first real break from this, as I'm sad to say, but the Deathwalker's Ward was not this cracked out in the campaign. If you want to learn more about the vestiges, their lore, and in-game D&D mechanics, click the eye above. Now, I'm not mad they seem to have, well, juiced the vestiges up. To be fair, one of the best things about this armor was its defensive capabilities, which doesn't really make sense in a cool battle scene like this. These weapons are supposed to be crazy epic, god-touched weapons of legend. It makes sense that they would want them to be a massive boost in power for the character, seeing as it is an animated show, and this whole scene of Vax beginning to learn to accept death and unlocking the power of this armor, and then using it to save his allies, it just makes for a really awesome, pretty cool moment. and personally is a change that I'm pretty down with. Later, Vax continues to be plagued with these visions, even seeing a scene, an insane scene actually, from the Calamity, probably my favorite part of Critical Role lore. Side note, recently it was announced that Critical Role will continue their partnership with Amazon Prime Video in a new series depicting the adventures of Campaign 2 and the Mighty Nine in animated format. Please, for the love of God, Matt Mercer and the Critical Role team, I need either a one-off animated film or a short animated series of Exandria Unlimited Calamity. I'm begging you, please and thank you. Another thing that I love about Season 2 of Legend of Vox Machina is the way it blends each character's personal story arcs and challenges into the primary narrative of the Chroma Conclave. It's super impressive when you remember that these episodes are only around 25 minutes long, yet they're able to juggle simultaneously all these different stories at once, with episode 5 focusing on Keyleth, while throughout episodes 4 to 6 we see Grog's internal struggle with the sword, Craven Edge, and his inability to answer the question, where does his strength come from? An answer that we're sure to see in upcoming episodes. As we said, episode 5 largely covers Keyleth's personal story, a story of personal growth as the party venture to the druidic city of Pyra, which guards the entrance to the Plane of Fire. Unfortunately, though, this is where Thordak escaped, and now this place is an absolute hell. This episode really took me by surprise, as I don't remember this specific episode from the campaign being this insane and this violent. As throughout these scenes, it almost felt like I was watching an episode from the Castlevania animated series with how just intense it was. Legend of Vox Machina also does this really cool thing that I just can't help but nerd out over. See, the titles of the episodes are usually taken from the titles of episodes of Critical Role episodes, the episodes generally that they're based off of. But it also means so much more than that. Episode 5 is titled Pass Through Fire, which is the name of episode 69 from Campaign 1. But episode 4 of Legend of Vox Machina is actually based off of episode 46 from Campaign 1, the Cinder Grove Revisited. So why did they change this? Our episode opens with Keyleth as a young girl, her mother leaving to journey on her Aramente, a rite of passage for the leaders of the Ashari tribe. In these scenes, we see a young, scared Keyleth, not too much different from the young woman that is shown to us in Season 1 of Legend of Vox Machina. In these scenes, Keyleth's mother conjures her powers of the elements in a very Avatar The Last Airbender-esque scene. Remember, Titmouse is the studio that animated Avatar The Last Airbender. Pretty obvious reference here. Young Keyleth reaches out, burning her hand on the fire. Her mother then explains never to pull back as she plunges her hand deeper into the fire. She says that flames cannot live without air, and as a member of the Air Ashari, we were made to pass through fire. Keyleth's story is a very human one, the one of a young woman who's afraid to fail. Afraid she's not going to be able to live up to the legacy of her mother, afraid she's going to let her friends down and all of the people who rely upon her. It's a very real human story, one of personal growth, and one that I think every young adult goes through in some way or another. We finally see Keyleth face her fears of failure as she and her father attempt to close the portal to the Plane of Fire. But they're unable to. Overwhelmed with fear and shame, Keyleth admits to her father that she hasn't actually completed her trial, her Aramente. She's been too scared. It's then, though, that Keyleth remembers the words that her mother said to her when she left. Listen to your power, Keyleth. Keyleth walks forward, placing her hand into the fire, into the portal to the Plane of Fire. She then says to herself, I was made to pass through fire, as she steps through the portal into the Plane of Fire, closing the rift, as she transforms into this awesome, insane fire elemental. Now, I'm not even gonna freaking lie to you guys. There was at least one moment in each of these 3 episodes that, well, flooded me with emotion. This was one of those times, and man, does it make me wish I recorded my reactions to these episodes, because I shit you not, this scene actually made me cry a little bit. It's these little things in Legend of Vox Machina that make it so good. Their ability to capture hours and hours of storytelling and character growth, long-term character growth, in just 25-minute episodes. It's absolutely amazing. I think of all of the characters in Vox Machina, Legend of Vox Machina does the most justice to Keyleth, and it does so amazingly, really telling the very human story that Keyleth tells. Finally, we have episode 5, an episode in which saw some weird changes from our campaign. Our party finally ventured to the Sphinx's mate, where they will learn the location of the other vestiges. But when they come face to face with this male Sphinx, they are presented with a challenge. Now, in the campaign, the challenge was to discover the Sphinx's names through a series of riddles, all while they're fighting for their lives and fighting against some crazy time travel magic which rapidly ages our party. In the animated series, though, the Sphinx simply challenges them to wound it. Ultimately, everyone ends up failing, leaving only Scanlan. I don't know about you, but I saw instantly where this was going, as who else could wound a lonely Sphinx but a love song singing bard? I mean, hey, would it really be Legend of Vox Machina without at least one Scanlan musical number? After completing the test, Scanlan is awarded with the vestige Mythcarter, a blade that I have a feeling we will see Scanlan use possibly more in the animated series than he actually did in the campaign. Throughout all of this, we continue to see Grog struggle with the cursed blade Craven Edge as it continuously hungers for blood. Grog slowly losing control over this weapon. It's then that we have one of our biggest changes so far in Legend of Vox Machina, the battle between the Sphinx and Umbrasyl. Now, while these scenes were epic, as who doesn't want to see a battle between an ancient Sphinx and an ancient black dragon, it did make me wonder though, why did they do this scene? Earlier in the episode, we saw a returning character, Anna Ripley, apparently making a deal with Umbrasyl for information about Vox Machina and the vestiges, with the dragon's goal being to steal said vestige Mythcarter, something that it actually succeeds in doing, another change from Campaign 1. Well, remember that Legend of Vox Machina necessarily sometimes has to reorganize events from Campaign 1 to better flow with the runtime of the show. At the end of this episode, the party venture into the Feywild, but in the campaign, this doesn't actually happen until after they defeat Umbrasyl. But by having Umbrasyl take the vestige, it gives Vox Machina another reason to later return to Western. As well, it helps to explain why Scanlan doesn't use his vestige that much during Campaign 1. As in the animated show, they obviously take it away from him. Remember, they juiced up these vestiges for the show, so I imagine they did this kind of maybe for continuity's sake, as taking the vestige away from the party keeps them at a lower power level right now. And so we need to ask ourselves then, why would they kill the Sphinx? Again, this feels like possibly a continuity reason. If you're going to introduce a character as powerful, I guess, as the Sphinx, some fans might wonder why it doesn't return later in the series to help fight against these dragons. By killing it off, it basically prevents this. It kind of cleans up this problem rather nicely and further acts as character progression for Scanlan, who recently befriended this ancient Sphinx. At the end of the day, though, this is really just my speculation, and it could just be they wanted to feature this super crazy fight scene. Overall, I think it's quite impressive how the writers have managed to adapt hundreds of hours of D&D campaign down to just a few 25-minute animated episodes. Many of the changes make sense in the broader aspect of the plot, and those intimately familiar with the story of the Chroma Conclave can see just how the many different setups are being used by the animated series to further tell the story. Overall, I'm still absolutely floored by Legend of Vox Machina Season 2. I genuinely didn't think it was going to be this much better than Season 1, but it really feels like the writing and animation team really took things to a whole new level here, man. I can't wait for the next few set of episodes. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I want to see your thoughts and opinions and reviews on this new set of episodes 4, 5, and 6 in the comments down below. As always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace, love, adieu.
A love story that might be. We wasn't supposed to happen. So much talk around us. We became numb to the yapping. It was like 05. Got my license to drive. Picked you up in my pop's car. Went for a ride. Couldn't no one tell us nothing. That night was ours. All the stars aligned and you were so damn fine. Yeah. It was